Welcome everyone. Today we'll talk about paths in Rust. This is a very important concept. It's very similar to what we have in the file system, but before doing that, I want to do something that we never did so far. So far, when we created any project, we did that with cargo new and then the name of the project, or cargo init, or in the very first lesson, we did this like creating a file. So in the, let's say, in the basic way. But since we started talking about modules, I started to say that but in modules, we can also refer to crates that are binaries and not executable. So how can I create in Rust a library? It's very simple and I love how this is done in Rust. We never did it so far in this series, so I think it's time to do it. And we can do this in this way. Cargo new, as we usually do when we have the project that has a main.rs file, and we can call it rust underscore paths underscore live, and then we can add an option dash lib. Let's see what's the difference here. Created the library rust paths live, then I can step into this folder rust paths live. Let's open this file, let's open this directory, and let's see if this looks a bit different. So it seems very similar to what we had so far. We have a cargo.toml, a .gitignore, but let's check the src folder. We don't have a main file, we have a lib.rs file. So this project is intended not to run an executable, but it's what is called a binary crate and not an executable crate. And you see, here we have a sort of boilerplate just to test it out. We can remove it, we don't need it, but we'll do something inside this library. And of course, here we can't do cargo run, but we don't need it for this project. We'll just try cargo build, and hopefully if this does build, it will work if we use this library. So this is how you create a create library with the option dash lib. Okay, so now let's start talking about paths. What are paths in Rust? They are used when we have a module to identify an item. So they can be used to identify a module, to identify structs, enums, module, and anything else. So we have two different types of paths. We have absolute and relative. Let's see an example, because I think this is the best way. Let's take an example that's similar to what we did in the previous lesson here, and let's focus on what we see on line 9 and 12 here. So for simplicity, I created a module inside the same file. We saw in the previous lesson that we can also, probably it's recommended, to have a module that is outside this file and is probably here in this structure, in these folders. So in this case, we have this function, public function, and we are basically talking about the behavior of a restaurant when we have something that happens behind the scenes or in front of the scene. And check line 9, we have create. This is similar to when we have slash create and we have a root. So we have, this is like having like front. It's similar to this, front of house, hosting, and add to a list. So we are doing something like this. So we are referring here to the absolute path. Instead, when we use a relative path, we see we don't have this create. It's similar to what we have when we have a relative path. You see, we don't have, for example, this slash. So if you are used to navigate in paths, or you used paths also in other types of applications, web applications, probably you understand what we are talking about. There is not a way which is correct and another one which is wrong. It probably depends on what you want to do with your files and modules, for example, in the future. There are advantages for both of them. For example, an advantage of a relative path is that if we move it, for example, or we create or we move this whole module, this will always be relative to the same module and submodule. And the absolute, instead, it's better when we want to move it, let's say, on a whole different place, but we want to keep the core structure. Okay, so we have this module called front of house, and inside this module, this is valid, we have another module. We have what is called submodule. Okay, now let's try it out. Do you think that this will work or not? Let's put this panel on the right. So if I can type cargo run, of course, because this is not an executable. We don't have a main function. But if I type cargo build, do you think this will work or not? In this case, we are talking about scope. So we are trying basically to access this module, which is in the same file, and then accessing this module inside this other module, and then this function add to wait list. It's an option that we want. For example, when you go to a restaurant, we are added to wait list. When I went to Japan, usually you have a wait list once you reach the front of a restaurant. So yes or not, will this compile or not? Let's see. I have the chat on the phone. I'll check it from the phone. It's easier. Let's see. Please give some money. Probably worst way to introduce yourself. Okay, let's see. You see, Krish, we have the cringe emoji in the YouTube chat. Not laptop. What do you mean by not laptop? Avi. Okay. Let's see. Let's go. Something I might actually understand. Yes. He asked for money. Yes. Yeah. So it's like the opposite of donating. Instead of donating, you go live and ask people for money. Okay. It's okay. So, yes, no, maybe. Will this work or not? The answer, spoiler, the answer is the same. So it's not about here the type of path, but it's about the scope visibility. No. Jolene says no. Okay. Can you also say why? Because it's the first question. So usually, you mean, it doesn't work. I mean, if I had any question about Rust, I would probably say like, and the question is, will it compile? If I'm not sure, I will always say no. Thank you, Avi. Wait. Let's see. Thank you. But you gifted the memberships while the others were off. But it's okay. Let's see. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Avi. Appreciated them. I wanted to get back here the chat. It's okay. We don't do this for the clout. Right. Okay. This. You see, I'm so relaxed today that I can actually get the chat in and back. It's actually doable. But you need to go to the next level. Arirtra, Mateus, Sigmund, Rohit, Imanshu. I want to do more live streams. I really miss. I don't stream enough. Anyway, only Jolene answered. Sorry. Aman, you wanted the Rust part, and now you need to answer. Yes or not? Will it compare yes or not? I was saying, If I'm not sure, I will always say no. Because the Rust compiler is so annoying. What do you think? What do you think? Thank you. No. Caps lock, no. No. Okay. Let's see. Can you also say why? Can you say why or not? Let's see. I don't know. Love it. I love it. I love it, Aman. I loved this answer. I would have answered the same. Because, usually in Rust, things they don't compile. If they have a very small issue. So, okay, so let's try to compile this cargo build. No, let me remove the shot. Wait. No. Okay, let's do cargo build. And we have an error. Let's read. Module hosting is private. So a module inside another module doesn't have automatically the visibility. So what we can do here is Control L. On line 2, we can add pub, which stands for public. Now, do you think that this is enough? Do you think this will work if now I type cargo build? I'm trying to access this function called add to waitlist on line 3, which is inside this public module. What do you think? Will this work or not? Let's see. We did a similar example last week. And understanding this is crucial because we need to understand not just the paths but also the scope and private and public in modules, or I will say what is the default behavior. Basically, the question is, are things inside a public module by default public or by default private, not public? Let's see. This is very important to understand. Let's see. Andrew, add to a list needs to be pub2. Rust hides everything. I love this answer by Jolene. Sounds like it better be private. It's not about being better or worse. It's understanding how Rust thinks and works. For example, we saw that for variables they are all immutable by default. If we want to change something, we need to be very explicit. To be honest, I'm a huge fan of this. So we added the pub mod on line 2. If we type cargo build, again we have a mistake. Again we have an error. And as you can see, function add to a list is not publicly re-exported. Private module. Function add to playlist is private, and you see they are trying to say, hey, you should change this if you want this to be public. So let's do it. Let's add the pub here in front also of the function, and now it works. So this is very important. The items and the paths inside a public module, they're not public by default. We need to explicitly say what we want to be public inside a module and what we want to not be public. And of course, about visibility, what is inside this, of course, has the visibility on what is outside, because they have the context. Okay, so we're talking about the visibility inside the module, but for example here we have the visibility, for example, of the module front of house, of course, because we are in an inner module. Okay, I hope that this was clear. Okay, now we are doing another example. We have 2-3 examples today, and then we can relax again. Okay, let me check if we have something with the private by default. Okay, nice. Thank you, Abdul Kim. I don't know, was it me? It was Bob, it was not me. Abdul, it was Bob. You should say thanks to Bob, not me. The gift was by Bob. Thanks for coming, by the way. Okay. Okay, now let's see another example. Let's see another example. And for this example, we are using this part. So we have this function, let's say outside, and then we have this module. We are talking about using super. What is super? To access a parent module. We are not talking about constructors and so on, so don't get confused by the super keyword. You can see this super keyword on line 7. So a very easy way to understand super in a few seconds is very similar to when we do something like this. Okay? Check line 3. It's like go up one module. So you see here we have this module back of house. Here we have a function inside this module, and inside this we have this cook order, which is an inner function which is not public. You see on line 10 we have super deliver order. Of course, we are not focused on the implementation. Here we'll have a function body here, but to use a function which is outside the module, of course the function has to exist, we can just use super. So basically it's just go up one level, go up one level. Of course, we're talking about module paths. This is a very simple and powerful way to refer to the module which is outside this module. In this case is this whole crate. Let's say we are at the root level in terms of crate. Is it clear? This is a very simple concept. Okay, so this was the super. Okay. Okay, now last two concepts are for structs and enums. We had dedicated multiple lessons about structs and enums, so I'll not repeat everything about structs and enums here, but it's a concept that is also used in many programming languages, so you probably have an idea of what they are. How does the path work for structs, for example? We can take this example, and then, no worries, I will explain everything. Let's take it here. Let's take this, okay, for structs, let's see this example. This should be clear if you made one struct in Rust. So we have this module, you can see from line 1 to 15, and then we see a struct, a public struct to be precise, called breakfast. And inside this struct we can have fields. A struct is a compound type that is basically used to define the blueprint of an object. And you can see here we have on line 3 pub toast. So the toast, which is a string, is public. And then we have something else, for example, a seasonal fruit, which is still a string, but here this is not public. Okay, so it's very important to understand that we can have in the struct some fields that are public and some fields that are not. We have here an implementation of methods for a struct which has the same name of the struct. This is not a coincidence. This is called like this because inside here we can define methods for the struct that we just defined. Now, if we try to compile this, do you think this will work or not? Cargo build. We have this module, which with a public struct. We have here the implementation of the methods, and then here we have this public function on line 17, and we have here we are declaring a variable which is mutable called mil, and we are using something which is inside this module. Okay, this module is not public, but let's see. Check line 19, breakfast summer, and then we change our mind. Let's see. Meal.toast, string from with, println, I would like toast, please. Let's see. I like toast, but also toasts. You know, in Italian, tosto is tough. Like I am, that's a tough person. Like tosto is tough. In the sense like tough boy, like in that meaning. Let's see. Thanks, Bob. Android Dev Toast. Yes, I've used them. I've used them a lot. Okay, so you should have said I like toast, but also Android toast. Yes, I've done them in the past. I've coding something in with Android development. Java or Kotlin? I used Java, I think. Yes, it was Java. Okay, so let's try to compile this cargo build. And you can see we have a couple of warnings because we are not using some fields, but here, for example, everything is working. Instead, if we try to have something like this, so define something as for the seasonal fruit here, in this case we have an error. Because this field on line 4 is not public, we can't decide. This is something that will be used internally and so on. Okay. Nice. Last example, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, the last example is how can we use enums in modules using the correct paths. So let's see. Enums and paths. Let's see an example. Okay, let's see. No, I don't like this. Let's take an example. Okay, we can have this, I think. Let's see if I can find it. Example. Let's do an example for. Okay, let's do an example for enums. Example enums. Okay, something like this. And then we can have, no, wait. I want to do this again. a moment. Because I wanted to take, I trusted GitHub Copilot and now it's not working. Okay. Okay, for enums, let's see. Enums public in modules. Let's see if we have something. No. Okay, let's take this example. I wanted to do something else, but it's okay. Okay. Okay, for enums in paths and for modules, these are enums for paths. You see, we have a module with an enum, which is also public. for example, appetizer, which can be a soup or salad, and we can use them to eat at the restaurant. And I think this does, and this should work. Let's try cargo build. So this works. We have a couple of warnings, but it does work. The question is, can we have a single public field in an enum or not? Can we put here on line 4 pub, like we did in the struct, or not? Let's try to recompile. On line 4, we changed soup to pub soup. No. Visibility, let's read. Visibility qualifier are not permitted here. So we can't decide what is public and what is not inside an enum. And I like this approach. So when we have an enum, either we have a public enum that we can use outside the module, or not, we use an enum just internally inside a module. So to make it short, we can't have some options that are public and some options that are not public. If we have pub enum, this will be available also outside the module. So in Rust enums, they don't have, in Rust enums, they don't work as the structs do, that we can choose what is public and what is private inside the type. And this is the end of the lesson about paths in Rust. We'll probably do more lessons in details, because this is a very important part, because we are using different files. So when we'll create some projects, we will take care and we will use the concepts that we are using. But I really wanted to have a very basic and low-level lesson about this, because this is a part that I always struggle with when I create, when I use a language. I want to understand how can I create a module, like in Java or in JavaScript. And to be honest, is always different, no matter what's the language. Here, I think it's very hard to find two languages that have the same structure for external modules. So in Rust, this is how they work. I really like the fact that you can define these libraries in a super easy way with the option --lib, and then inside this we can basically define modules here.